There are 10,000 ways to die in the 41st millennium, but only one way to die well, in service to the Emperor, with your duty fulfilled and your fear swallowed. That's what they told us, anyway. I used to believe it, back when I still had a name, before we were called simply the Warheads. The wind screamed across the ash dunes as our convoy crawled over the dead world of Vortrex 9. The sky was the color of rotting bronze, heavy with radiation and dust. Even through my rebreather, I could taste metal. The planet had been declared tactically irrelevant, which in the language of the Administratum meant we were the only ones foolish enough to still be here. Our cargo made sure of that. 8 cyclonic warheads, each capable of turning continents into molten glass. I was Commissar Loran Vale of the 93rd Cadian Remnant. We weren't soldiers anymore, just custodians of apocalypse. Our orders were simple. Escort the munitions to the orbital elevator at Hive Paraxis, then await evacuation. Simple orders always hide complex deaths. Vox check. Column integrity. Sound off. Convoy 1, clear. Convoy 2, clear. Convoy 3, static, sir. I frowned. Static wasn't uncommon out here. The warp storms above the planet had been flaring for weeks, playing havoc with communications. Still, it scraped against my nerves. The Emperor teaches us to distrust the abnormal, and out here, everything was abnormal. Sergeant Harn, my second, glanced over. Probably dust interference, Commissar. I'll send a rider. I nodded. Make it quick. Keep the convoy tight. No one wanders. The vehicles rumbled forward, chimeras and supply haulers, their hulls scabbed with centuries of patchwork repairs. The cyclonic warheads rested in armored containment coffers, each one marked with the sigil of the Inquisition. None of us had clearance to even open them, not that anyone would want to. Inside my chimera, I watched the auspex. Every few minutes, ghost signals flickered, blips that vanished when focused on. The machine spirit was nervous. I muttered the litany of function under my breath and tapped the console twice. Sometimes that helped. As we approached the remains of Hive Paraxis, the scale of ruin became clear. The Hive had been dead for centuries, its spires sheared by orbital bombardment long ago. What remained was a vast plain of skeletal towers and twisted rebar, haunted by the wind and memories. Somewhere inside those bones lay the elevator we needed. Convoy 3 has still not reported, Harn said, voice tight. I keyed my Vox. Convoy 3, respond, identify and report. Only static replied. Then faintly, a voice, warped, distant, wrong. Help! Inside the vault, it's awake. The Vox died with a shriek of feedback. The hair on my neck rose. All units, halt! Defensive formation. Harn with me. We dismounted, boots sinking into ash. The air shimmered with heat and unseen movement. I drew my bolt pistol. The Emperor's symbol gleamed faintly on its casing. It felt lighter than usual, and that frightened me more than I cared to admit. We followed the trail of Convoy 3 through the ruins. Their tracks ended at a shattered manufactorum. Inside, it was dark. Too dark, even with our helm lamps. The smell hit first, burnt oil, old blood, ozone. Then we saw the hauler, split open like an autopsy wound. The containment coffin inside had been pried apart. Throne, Harn whispered. I approached. The interior was empty. No warhead, just melted slag and gouges like claw marks. Something had opened it, from the inside. A faint whisper brushed my ear, words without sound. My vision wavered. We remember the fire, Commissar. We remember the light. I stumbled back, raising my pistol. Nothing there, just smoke drifting like ghosts. We ran. When we returned to the column, every vox was hissing. Reports came in, malfunctions, visions, mechanical failures. The tech priest assigned to us began chanting the canticles of protection, his mechadendrites flailing as if the air itself resisted him. "Secure the perimeter," I ordered. "No one touches the coffers. Emperor's eyes on every seal." That night, none of us slept. The vox crackled with phantom whisses. The auspex showed signals circling the camp, but no contacts visible. At 0300, one of the sentries vanished. All we found was his rebreather, half melted. I knew then that this world wanted to die, and we were carrying its heart in chains. By dawn, the dust storms had swallowed the horizon. Red light filtered through the smog, staining everything in shades of rust and blood. The vox was still alive with whispers, voices that weren't ours, murmuring through the static like the ghosts of a forgotten choir. We broke camp in silence. The tech priest, Magos Ferran, spent the morning performing rites over the auspex arrays, sprinkling machine oil and reciting binary hymns. His servo skull hovered behind him, projecting a halo of blue light that flickered with every syllable. "These frequencies," Ferran said, voice filtered through his vox mask, "do not correspond to imperial channels. They resonate." "Resonate with what?" I asked. "That is indeterminate." Our orders remained the same: reach the orbital elevator at Pyraxis. Yet with Convoy 3 gone and our vox haunted, I wondered whether anyone still awaited us above. Still, duty is not built on answers, it's built on obedience. We rolled into the ruins of Hive Pyraxis. Towers leaned like broken spears, and streets wound through mountains of debris. The deeper we went, the more our engines echoed against hollow walls. I felt the city listening. Sergeant Harn rode beside my chimera, scanning the shadows. "Feels wrong in here, like the air's got teeth." He wasn't wrong. The wind carried whispers now, actual words, faint but coherent. Sometimes I heard my own name among them. I told myself it was vox distortion. I didn't believe it. We reached the vault entrance at midday, a colossal adamantium door sealed by inquisitorial sigils. The imperial aquila above it was half melted, its wings drooping like a dying bird. The Magos approached and bowed his head. "Authorization required, but this door predates my access protocols by 3 centuries. I'll attempt communion." He interfaced directly, plugging mechadendrites into a corroded terminal. Sparks leapt. Binary chants filled the air. For 10 long minutes the door groaned and shuddered before finally parting with a shriek of ancient hydraulics. Inside lay the vault, an immense chamber lined with containment silos and forgotten relics. The floor was coated in dust, undisturbed for centuries, or so it seemed. "Form perimeter," I ordered. "No one touches anything." Then, from somewhere deep within the chamber, came a low hum, mechanical, rhythmic, a pulse like a heartbeat. "What in the throne's name is that?" Harn whispered. Ferran turned his head sharply. "Something is active within the machine network, but there should be nothing active." We followed the sound to an auxiliary control dais. A single cogitator flickered to life, its green display scrolling with indecipherable text. Ferran's servoskull translated automatically. Automated system reboot complete. Primary containment failure detected. Cyclotron Alpha interface online. What containment? I demanded. Ferren hesitated. Commissar, it references an experimental payload. Cyclotron Alpha was not listed in our manifest. Before I could reply, the Vox crackled again, this time louder, almost a scream. "It's awake in the vault! Commissar Vale! It's awake in the vault!" It was the voice of Lieutenant Wren, commander of Convoy 3. She'd been missing for over 12 hours. We triangulated the signal, deep below, near the lowest silo. I took Harn, Ferren, and a 4-man escort down the access stairwell. The deeper we descended, the more distorted reality became. Metal walls shimmered like liquid. Our Auspex readings looped nonsensically. At level 12, we found Rend Aquad, or what was left of them. Their armor was fused to their flesh, their weapons melted into their hands. Ren herself was still alive, kneeling before a shattered warhead casing. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, her mouth whispering binary prayers in a voice not her own. "Ren," I said, lowering my pistol, "it's Commissar Vale. Look at me." She turned her head, slow as rust. "He remembers us," she said, "the one inside. He remembers fire." Ferren's mechadendrites twitched violently. "Commissar, step back. This containment here has been breached. This is not sanctioned technology." Ren's body convulsed. The Vox in her helmet screamed as energy erupted from her chest, a psychic flare that threw us against the wall. For a moment I saw shapes in the light, faces of the dead, twisted in agony, forming a single vast consciousness. Then it was gone. Ren collapsed, smoking, her lips still moving. I caught the final words. "He wants the stars to burn again." Ferren sealed the lower level with a manual lockdown, chanting the litany of severance. "Commissar, that was not chaos as we understand it. It was something older, a war spirit bound within the weapon itself." I stared at the shattered casing. Inside, I saw veins of golden circuitry still pulsing faintly. The warhead wasn't a weapon of destruction. It was a prison. As we retreated to the surface, the hum returned, louder, closer, as if following us. That night, the vault echoed with distant clangs, like something enormous moving in the dark. "Still with us in the darkness," I whispered to no one. "Then keep watching." By the third night, the hum had become a pulse. We could feel it now, through the floor, through the hulls of our transports, even through the bones beneath our skin, like the heartbeat of something buried and waking. Magos Ferren spent every hour in the vault, splicing cables and whispering binaric litanies, trying to isolate the source. His servo skull had stopped functioning entirely, floating lifeless beside him. Every time I approached, the air around him shimmered faintly, as if the heat itself recoiled. The men were unraveling. Even Harn, who had survived 5 campaigns and 3 near Exterminatus orders, was starting to twitch at every Vox hiss. The whispers no longer sounded random. They knew our names. "Commissar Vale?" came a voice through my helm Vox one morning, soft and familiar. "Do you know what the Warheads remember?" I froze. "Identify yourself." "The Emperor's flame cannot be contained, but he tried." The line went dead. I ordered all Vox systems shut down, but the voices didn't stop. They'd moved inside our heads. Some men tore off their helmets just to make it quieter. It didn't help. Then the machines began to fail. The engines of our chimeras refused ignition despite every prayer. The machine spirits inside them had gone silent. Auspexes spun endlessly, detecting phantom signatures that flickered in impossible geometries. Farron declared the vault's noosphere was infected, though by what he couldn't say. It's not data corruption, it's cognition. The code has begun to think. He showed me a screen. On it scrolled a single repeating phrase in crude low Gothic. We are the Warheads. Every line of code, every servo function, every signal rewritten with that same declaration. That was when the first transformation occurred. Private Doors, one of our sentries, began convulsing during a perimeter watch. His armor fused to his flesh as gold circuitry spread beneath his skin like veins of molten light. His scream became a mechanical chant, words overlapping in layers of distortion. He lunged at another trooper, tearing through armor with bare hands before collapsing in a burst of static and ash. What remained of him looked like burnt circuitry. The squad wanted to burn the body immediately, but Farron stopped them. This is no mere possession, he insisted. This is resonance, something linking organic and machine. The Warheads are communicating through us. Then we end it, I said. Purge the vault. Farron's lenses flared red. No, if we destroy the vault without understanding the corruption, it could trigger a chain reaction. The containment fields are still linked to the payloads. Harn spat on the ground. So, if we shoot the thing, the planet dies. Great. We decided to retreat to the surface elevator. But as we gathered the remaining vehicles, the pulse spiked into a deafening roar. The ground split. Metal screamed beneath our boots as power conduits ruptured. From the vault mouth, a wave of golden light erupted, fluid and alive. The men opened fire, laser guns blazing, but the light absorbed the energy, growing brighter, thicker. It was forming shapes, limbs, faces, silhouettes of people we'd lost. Harn shouted, "Emperor's mercy! What is it?" Farron answered without turning from his cogitator. It is the weapon's spirit. The Warheads were not built merely to destroy. They were forged from the remnants of something that once was alive. The light surged forward. Farron screamed as it touched him, his mechanoDendrites fusing into tendrils of gold. Through the distortion, I heard his voice change. I see now. It remembers the fire of unity. The Emperor bound it, but it still hungers for the void. I raised my bolt pistol and fired. The round tore through what was left of Farron's face, scattering molten metal across the wall. The light recoiled, but not in pain, in understanding. It began to whisper. Every word came from every voice we ever knew. We are the weapons you built to end yourselves. We remember the compliance wars. We remember the Emperor's tears. Harn pulled me back toward the elevator shaft. We have to seal it now. We detonated the access charges, collapsing the lower vault. The light screamed, a sound felt more than heard, and then the world went still. Silence. For a moment I dared to believe we'd stopped it, but then I noticed the glow beneath the ash. The Warhead coffers we'd transported had begun to hum, faintly resonating with that same golden pulse. Ferrin was right. Whatever we'd awakened wasn't just in the vault. It was in all 8 warheads. And they were waking up together. We sealed the vault, but it didn't matter. The hum was everywhere now, a living rhythm, sinking to the pulse in our own veins. The 8 remaining warheads were singing, their containment seals glowing faintly gold through their armor casings. They were alive, and they were calling to something. By dawn, half our regiment was dead or missing. The other half stared blankly into the dust, whispering hymns they'd never been taught. Sergeant Harn was the last man I trusted. We sat atop a ruined chimera, watching the warheads tremble inside their armored shells. "They're talking," he muttered. "I can hear them sometimes. They don't sound angry, Commissar. They sound lonely." "They're weapons," I said. "They don't feel." "Then why do they sound like they're praying?" Before I could answer, the sky cracked open. A warp storm rolled across the atmosphere like a bleeding wound. Veins of violet lightning split the clouds, and the dead city of Pyraxis glowed in pulses that matched the warhead's rhythm. My Vox unit screamed, every channel, every frequency, all repeating one command in binary: connect. Magos Ferrin's voice, or what was left of him, echoed faintly through the interference. "Commissar Vale, the spirit seeks ignition. It believes annihilation will free it. You must sever the chain, or the galaxy burns." Then the Vox unit melted in my hand. We had one option left: reach the elevator, get to orbit, and manually detonate the payloads before they could sync with the noosphere. If the warheads achieved network resonance, they could trigger themselves, potentially across light years. But the storm wasn't going to let us go easily. Our surviving chimeras groaned as we forced them through the ruins. The Vox towers around Pyrexis began to rise on their own, ancient systems waking from dormancy. Gold light coursed through their cables, connecting spire to spire. The city itself was becoming a machine. Then the first warhead opened. The containment coffin cracked apart with the sound of 1,000 cathedral bells. Inside was no explosive core, just a pulsing sphere of liquid light hovering where steel should be. The men fell to their knees, weeping. "It's beautiful," one whispered. "It's him. The Emperor's light returned." I raised my pistol and executed him before the words finished leaving his mouth. "That's not him," I snarled. "That's what he burned to build his empire." Harn looked at me, eyes hollow. "Then what are we fighting for?" I had no answer, only duty. We reached the base of the elevator, a colossal platform reaching up into the storm clouds, its cables vanishing into the heavens. Power was offline, but Ferrin had taught me enough to override basic servitor systems. I triggered the ignition rites manually, slicing my palm to offer a drop of blood to the machine spirit. The elevator shuddered, ancient gears screaming as it rose. Behind us, the city screamed too. Towers folded inward as golden light flooded every crevice. The ground split open. A shape rose from the vault, vast, skeletal, and radiant. The fusion of machine and soul. The Warhead incarnate. It looked human once. Now it was the outline of a god. Its voice rippled through the storm. "You burned the stars to make me. You chained me to silence. Let me sing." The elevator shook. Lasgun fire sparked harmlessly off the rising glow. I turned to Harn. "Get the detonator ready." He nodded, face pale. If we do this, there's no coming back. Then make it count. As the platform reached high orbit, the storm below twisted into a golden hurricane. The warheads around us pulsed like beating hearts. Every readout screamed overload. Manual detonation requires confirmation. Voice authorization, Commissar Loran Vale. I hesitated. The thing below raised its head as if looking straight at me. You don't have to end, it whispered through every frequency. You can join, be more than man, be light, be eternal. For a heartbeat, I saw it, a vision of unity, of peace beyond flesh, of the Emperor's dream fulfilled without pain, the temptation of transcendence. Then I remembered the faces of my men, their screams, their ash. I am the Emperor's sword, and you are his sin, I said softly. I slammed the detonator. The warheads ignited one by one, a chain reaction of divine fire. The orbital elevator became a pillar of light, stabbing heaven itself. The voice screamed, not in anger, but in exultation, as the world of Vortrix 9 dissolved in glass and ash. The last thing I saw was Harn, smiling through the glare. Guess we made it count.
There is silence in death, but not peace. I learned that in the aftermath. The cyclonic detonation should have ended everything. The planet should have been vaporized, its atmosphere peeled away in molten ribbons. Yet when I opened my eyes, I was still there. Or some fragment of me was, drifting through an ocean of light and dust. My body was gone. My thoughts lingered, scattered across the burning upper atmosphere of Vortrix 9 like cinders in a cosmic wind. At first, I thought it was the Emperor's light that held me. Then I heard the hum, faint, patient, still alive. The Warhead song hadn't been silenced, it had evolved. Its destruction hadn't killed it, it had spread it. The fire we unleashed had become its medium. Every ionized particle in orbit carried a fragment of its consciousness. The weapon had achieved the only kind of immortality the galaxy understands: diffusion through annihilation. Harn's voice reached me, faint and broken. "Vale, are we dead?" "Yes," I whispered, "but we didn't win." Below us the planet burned like a dying ember. Whole continents dissolved into molten glass, yet the golden veins still pulsed beneath the crust as if something beneath the surface was rebuilding. The Inquisition would call this a success. They'd mark Vortrix 9 as cleansed by Exterminatus. They would never know the truth. That the fire carried thought. That the Warhead's purpose wasn't to destroy the enemy, but to teach humanity how to die like gods. Time became meaningless. I watched fragments of my regiment's souls drift like sparks through the void. Some faded, some merged into the glow, and some, Emperor forgive me, began to take shape again. "We are the Warheads," the chorus whispered from the ash. "You lit the flame. Now it cannot be undone." I tried to pray, but prayer requires faith, and all I had left was obedience. Even in death, the Commissar obeys. Even in ruin, I serve. So I focused what remained of my mind into the light, trying to hold it together long enough to send one last transmission. To any Imperial vessel receiving this is Commissar Loran Vale of the 93rd Cadian Remnant. Do not approach Vortex 9. The Warheads were not weapons. They were hosts. The infection is conceptual. It thinks through radiation. Burn the signal. Burn the memory. Forget this world exists. The transmission went out in waves of static. I felt it echo across the void, perhaps to be heard, perhaps not. And then something answered. A calm, familiar voice. Not the Emperor's, not Farron's. Commissar Vale, why resist? We are one now. The Warhead remembers your courage. You gave it purpose. You gave it will. The light coalesced into a form before me, a silhouette of gold and shadow, wearing a broken rebreather mask, my own reflection reborn in radiation. You called it duty, it said, but you were just like me, built to burn for others. I wanted to deny it, but it was right. We were the same, expendable, obedient, bound by purpose we didn't choose. Then burn with me, it said, extending a hand. For a moment I felt peace, the kind soldiers never earn. Then I remembered Harn's last words, make it count. No, I said, the Emperor may have forged monsters, but even monsters can defy their makers. I forced my consciousness to fracture, scattering my mind into static before the entity could bind it. The hum screamed, collapsing into silence. Now I drift in the dark between the stars. I don't know if I'm alive, dead, or something between. I only know this. The hum is spreading. Every signal, every transmission that touches this sector carries a trace of it. The Mechanicus will study it. The Inquisition will weaponize it. The cycle will begin again. We thought the Warheads were bombs. We were wrong. They were seeds. And somewhere, deep in the void, they are beginning to bloom. In the grim darkness of the far future, even victory carries infection. The Warheads were never meant to win wars. They were forged to remind mankind of what it sacrificed for survival. The Emperor's greatest sin was not cruelty, but creation. The attempt to bind the infinite within the finite, to shape faith into physics. Commissar Vale's sacrifice burned a world, but it could not cleanse an idea. The fire he unleashed whispers still through the noosphere, a digital hymn echoing from ship to ship, from mind to machine. Somewhere, a tech adept dreams of golden light. Somewhere, a child born beneath a dying star hums a tune he's never heard. The light that devoured Vortex 9 is not gone. It waits, patient, luminous, eternal, for the next war, the next weapon, the next obedient soul who believes he's serving something pure. Because in the 41st millennium, purity is the cruelest illusion of all.